the mourning dove is also called a rain crow. And we had it was in the building trades for many years, and we had a pair of carpenters who said, "Oh, I hear the rain crows. Hey, let's go fishing." So they leave it. Any time there was any hint of rain, they would take. It was hard to get a house complete. So the rain crow in our is a mourning dove. Rain crows, but no rain. Instead, the summer routine under a round of blue skies, or of fairly clouds, cloudy with pretending. Beneath it all ribbed and overarched with thinking on the apparent this morning and everyday morning light. I listen to the recurrent sough as the common tongue of the conversant morning dove. Rain crow to those countrified enough to call them the same bird by different names, depending on the weight of the weather and having but one voice between them. The one heard for the simple rurals of its sympathies or the certainty of its forecast, the other silent, in the shape it occupies, seen on any clear afternoon as a shy, grey-brown, smallish bird, sometimes hunted for the meager meat it provides. Unquiescent, without word or sign that it knows the least thing about the nature of water, let alone the turbulent sea surrounding Ararat, the only land in the lonely ocean of the world. Or for the lack of a better story, or because a boat just happened to run aground there. When the great door opened and inside for the first time, the probationers, chirps, mewlings, barks, growls, and grunting stopped. And the differentiating mind received, if not its olive branch, out of the storm toss of that animal life, the air an emblem to the end of God's antediluvian wrath. Outside my own doors, the rain crow's sighs soften, melt into the gravity, into the already of a gravity-stricken pine, to bend and further bend there. Of the rain crow, the mourning dove, and other birds different and the same in the same bent tree, perched on separate boughs. A tree brought so low that here and there touches the ground, stiff-needled, encompassing by degrees the noon shadow that falls, or more likely is beneath it. A sun not yet risen that stands rooted, or seems to. Granted, the sun does not rise, but the eye is brought here to light by the earth's turning, and the suddenness of the unexpected tears coming down confounds that light configuring and summering where light matters and words mean or rise to look for the unheard in a music responsive to its call, and to call it in return. The rain crow is a mourning dove. And the last, Life in the Ordovician, which is the title poem of this book. I live in the Cincinnati area, which is known for its fossil matrix. The Ordovician period, Devonian Ordovician periods 420 years ago. And much of the flagstone pathways around the house and the patio are sedimentary fossil record. So this is my little involvement with life in the Ordovician. What vision brought him, while brooming last year's leaves off the trod limestone of his garden's path? The crazy quilt of its lithograph, a Chinese scroll that patterns chaos with its form. Unrolled ink petroglyphs, rubbings from the ancient bone houses of the coral. The old of the Daily News printed on the crinoid static vertebraic stems. Their broken vertiginous anemone blooms, wavering in the shallows of a 400-million-year-old sea, which begs the question of not how, but when, having already long ago vanished, what end there is in sight. For the work, the path he follows, to sweep or to be swept along clay banks millennia deep, older than the river, and that river's life, at one with the constancy of its pearl. Time flows, in a moment as perennial as the peonies he tends, rooted and just as tenacious as the surrounding oaks that make a Jacob's ladder for the ants, outlasting all with a name who live here. And he doing just as they who came before had play in the role of gardener, with the gardener unusual of his beads, taking care to serve, almost as if the flower existed for him, for the man in him alone to bend to. Praise requiring nothing of summer, except a sometimes rain, and the cold enough of winter with a little faith to breathe in. The air of its own accord carrying the sweet scent of flowers beyond a human use, as was said to be carried believer to belief, rumorous on the wings of angels, or failing that, on the stubborn backs of an everyday human grief, and though born with a bearer's grace to believe the whole of him no more than they, than last year's leaves the dusty clears and through the clearing seas, the path over which the broom whispers, the stray of its binding mortars, the shifting chronologies of its broken shores, Atlantean shale shattered spindrift ruins, proleptic with the sacred truth. Beneath his feet the toppled ashlars of its crazy quilt, the pre-marmorials of its salt intaglios, the varietal weathers of its aquitants, escalloped bone alphabets still in the making of its runes. And he, now on his knees, his hands in the sensitive splay of a blind man's fingers, taking its pulse, listening for his own heart's beat in those many dead oceans, his one good ear pressed to the floorboard